Hey Munich lovers, behind me is the Residence. This is a video about the ongoing museum series, and maybe it's a palace series as well in the future, but this is the Residence, and I'm here at the Hofgarten, so the court garden here behind the Residence. And what's inside the Residence I will show you in this video, so come with me and enjoy the video. The Munich Residence is the large city palace in Munich from which the monarchs of the House of Wittelsbach ruled Bavaria for hundreds of years. The origins of the residence date back to the 14th century. At that time it was still a medieval fortress. Today little of this remains, mainly the vaulted cellars have been preserved. In this so-called Apothekenhof, pharmacy courtyard, you can see small fine lines. From the air it becomes clear that these are the outlines of the old fortress. The actual construction of the residence began with Duke William IV. He began converting the medieval fortress into a Renaissance palace. Over the following centuries, each Bavarian monarch adapted the residence to their own wishes. It should therefore not be understood as a static building that was planned once and has stood ever since. Rather, it's a building complex that has undergone constant change through additions, conversions and war damage. The entrance to the Palace Museum is now located in the so-called Königshof, King's Court, behind the Königsbau, King's Building. King Ludwig I commissioned the Königsbau in the first half of the 19th century. As a great fan of the Renaissance, it is reminiscent of Palazzo Pitti in Florence. But now it's time to see the palace from the inside. The residence also houses the Treasury and the Bavarian state coin collection as museums. However, I'll leave those out here, otherwise the video will be too long. The Palace Museum alone has around 130 rooms, and I certainly won't show them all here. First you enter the Grottenhof. Duke William V had it built at the end of the 16th century. Even then, the Italian Renaissance was a great inspiration. Since I was there in winter, the small courtyard was closed and no water was flowing on the grotto wall, which is richly decorated with shells. But it was still beautiful. The Antiquarium is absolutely unique. It was built by Duke Albrecht V in 1571 as an annex to the residence for his collection of antiquities. Today it is the heart of the Munich Residence. At 69 meters, 226 feet long, it is one of the largest Renaissance halls in existence. It later served mainly as a banquet hall. On the sides of the hall are busts of Roman emperors. Unfortunately, 60% of the residence was hit by bombs during the war, including the Antiquarium. Today there is hardly anything left to see of this, which is why the hall is still occasionally used for concerts and state visits. Above the Antiquarium are the Electors' rooms. As an important ally of the Emperor in the 30 Years' War, Maximilian I was granted the title of Elector in 1623. Since then, Bavaria has been an important voice in the Empire. The rooms are laid out in accordance with Baroque court ceremony. Unfortunately, they were also severely damaged during the war. But the rooms were restored in their essential features, using the surviving artworks and the remains of the wall paneling. After the Electors' chambers, you come to the All Saints' Court Church. It was built here in 1837 in the Neo-Byzantine style, but unfortunately was almost completely destroyed during the war. There were no plans to restore it, as the building structure was significantly damaged. It was even supposed to be demolished in 1964. Only protests prevented worse from happening. Between the 1980s and 2000s, the exterior and interior were restored. However, the 19th century art has been lost. Today, concerts and lectures are held here, among other events. Next we move on to the new court garden rooms. These were furnished by Maximilian I as rooms for princes and guests. The wing was not given the name New Court Garden Rooms until 1966, as the works of art and furniture on display there today originally came from the Court Garden wing. But this wing was so badly damaged during the war that post-war buildings now stand in its place. After visiting the New Court Garden Rooms, visitors must first decide whether they want to take the long or short tour. I will of course take you on the long tour. In return, you can thank me with a like and a subscription. The next rooms are the Trier rooms. They are named after the Archbishop of Trier, Clemens Wenceslaus von Sachsen, who fled here from revolutionary French troops. However, since Maximilian's time, they had served as guest rooms or as council chambers when no guests were present. The rooms were also severely damaged during the war, so that the interior was later reconstructed to reflect the style of around 1615. At the end of the Trier rooms you come to the imperial staircase. Built in 1616, this magnificent staircase ends in the imperial hall, which I will come to in a moment. Descending the staircase you come to the bronze rooms, which contain bronze sculptures from the 16th and 17th century. The residence generally has rooms dedicated to objects like porcelain art, silverware and tableware. However, I will only mention these in passing and continue to focus on the rooms and the history of the building itself. In any case, I go up the imperial staircase to enter the imperial hall. The theme of the hall is the virtue and reason that a ruler should have. Images from ancient legends and the Old Testament are intended to encourage him. An encouragement that many modern politicians would also need. In front of the imperial hall is the four-horse hall. Originally, a ceiling painting of Apollo's sun chariot drawn by 4 horses adorned the room. The ceiling painting was also lost during the war. The stone rooms are located in the west wing. They got the name from the richly decorated stucco and marble ornamentation. When the emperor stopped in Munich, these rooms served as guest apartments. These were then decorated with precious tapestry, which can be seen here today in the original form. Unfortunately, this is not always the case with the ceiling paintings. Here too you can occasionally see the toll that the war took. The most valuable treasure of the Munich residence is located behind a heavy armored door. Here you will find the relics that the Wittelsbach family acquired during the Counter-Reformation. Most of them are framed in the finest goldsmith's work of their time. Right next to it is the court chapel, which is used for private devotions. Incidentally, Crown Prince Ludwig married Therese von Sachsen-Hildburghausen here in 1810. Later they celebrated with the people outside the city gates. This marked the birth of Oktoberfest. 2 steps further on is the rich chapel. It was Duke Maximilian's private prayer room. It is extremely richly and preciously decorated, hence the name Rich Chapel. This chapel is one of the rooms that survived the war best and is largely in its original condition. After that you come back to the point where you had to decide between the long and the short tour. And you saw that anyone who took the short tour would have missed out on quite a lot. On the main tour you first enter a room dedicated to the winter garden that King Ludwig II once built here. The fairy tale king had a very ambivalent relationship with Munich and therefore built little here. The building no longer exists either, but this time it's not because of the war. The winter garden was dismantled after Ludwig's death because the old walls couldn't bear the load and the artificial lake dripped through the ceiling. The rich rooms are located more or less in the center of the residence. Although this wing of the palace was severely damaged during the war, today it once again shines in the splendor of 18th century Rococo. It has been reconstructed in great detail. Not only do the large rooms stand out, such as the state bedroom, or the Green Gallery where absolutist celebrations were once held, framed by paintings by old masters. The small rooms in particular exude charm, such as the miniature cabinet and the mirror cabinet. Passing through the former rooms of the Electors, you enter the Königsbau, the newest part of the residence. Here too you have the option of shortening the tour. But that's not an option for me, of course. I took a look at the upper floors with the king's apartments. At the beginning of the 19th century, King Ludwig I had the interior furnished entirely in the classical style. Here too his love of antiquity, the Romans and the Greeks, came to fore. Many rooms were decorated with murals of ancient myths in the style of Pompeian wall paintings. Unfortunately, these Roman paintings were lost during the war. The classicistic furniture, on the other hand, is largely true to the original today. On the ground floor of the Königsbau there are 5 rooms dedicated to the Niebelungenlied. This saga is considered the German national epic. It tells a story of love, heroic deeds, betrayal and revenge. Wagner set it to music, it has been interpreted and rewritten countless times, it has been made into films, and, of course, it also found its way into art, as seen here. At the very end of the tour you will encounter a very famous work of art, the Mona Lisa. Of course, it's not the original, but a copy, which is also very mysterious. No one knows where the copy comes from, only one thing is clear: the background is not a Tuscan river landscape, but 2 very well-known mountains in Baden. At least, Mona Lisa is not as crowded here as she is in the Louvre. That was the tour of the Residence Museum. I originally wanted to show you the courtyards and outbuildings as well, but I do that in another video, otherwise this one will get too long. The Residence Museum is an absolutely top museum that you simply must see when you're in Munich. If you haven't seen it, have you even been to Munich? It is open between 10 AM and 5 PM. You can borrow audio guides in all kinds of languages, which explain the palace room by room in much more detail than I could here in the video. Regular admission costs €10, but there are also combination tickets with the Treasury for €15 or with the Treasury and Cuvier Theater for €20. And if you ever want me to show you around Munich and the surrounding area, just let me know. Here's my website and email address. See you on the next video. Philip.